Howdy. Welcome back to Writers Showcase. We're in the bad numbers again. We're in the sevens, and that'll be the case until we get to the 180. But I'm your host. This is Lord Inquisitor Dunn. This is Commissar Carl, and this is Wocat Mount Valerian. And we're just going to be doing Writer Showcase. Each person's going to read some section of what they've been doing for a little bit. I'm almost finished with one of my books. I'm excited to finally get done with that. And then I just need to figure out what I'm going to read next to you guys. Anyway, I'll pass the time over to Mr. Carl for his reading. Give us a summary and then let her rip.
All right. So, as we recall from last time, this is going to be the Coming Order Part 2, Chapter 43. And previously, we just got the notice that the Magisterium was going to be disbanded, and Shenna and company have just showed up at a little soiree on Angara's private island to talk about how the various component parts of the Magisterium are going to be distributed among the people, and by the people I mean the wealthy of Acre.
Of course.
Indeed. So, we will continue here. The auction for the Sparks Valley mines was convened in the early afternoon. A raucous crowd assembled around the podium, already barely civil before the proceedings even began. Gelwin called the assembly to order as best he could, and explained how the bidding process was to work. Prospectives could make two kinds of bids on the mining operation: a complete bid, which, if accepted, would purchase the entire operation, or a partial bid, which would purchase a number of shares in the operation to be determined once all other partial bids were made. To offset the added work of tallying up the number of shares and distributing them accordingly, the mines would only go to a partial bidders if their combined offering was at least 10% greater than the largest complete bid. Then, once all the bids were gathered and finalized, contracts to purchase would be issued to each bidder, entitling them to the purchase of their shares at the bank in 2 weeks' time. Offers were already being shouted out from the crowd before Gelwin had even finished his explanation. Now that the process is clear, Gelwin concluded, bidding for the Sparks Valley Mining Company is now open at 10 Loth complete bid. All at once, the assembled bidders exploded into a cacophony of noise so loud and harsh it made Shenna nearly want to claw her ears out. Offers were shouted out, one on top of another, so rapidly that one could barely be distinguished from all the rest. It took 3 minutes for Gelwin to bring a modicum of order to the crowd, during which time nearly 4 Raj in partial bids had accumulated to compete with a small bunch of tycoons who seemed ready to climb over each other's corpses in order to have the mines all to themselves. Several of the bidders ended up being forcibly ejected from the crowd after they came to blows with their fellows. The scene recalled to Shenna the plaza in Gold River outside the bank. Indeed, at times she thought she recognized a few faces and voices from there. "Yes, you there in the back," Gelwin called out, pointing to Kieran, who had raised his hand calmly as though there were nobody else present. "Have you a bid to offer?" "1 Raj, 47 and 30, partial bid," Kieran announced clearly. "1 Raj, 47 and 30 entered to the partial list," Gelwin repeated. "The total now stands at... just a moment, let me tally up our offers so far. 10 Raj total," Kieran said without missing a beat. Gelwin ignored him and continued tallying up the entries until he came to the end of the list. 10 Raj stands as the total, he growled, shooting a glare in Kieran's direction. "Up to your old tricks again, I see." "You're welcome," Kieran said. Gelwin shook his head and the bidding continued. "What was that about?" Shenna whispered to Kieran. I corrected one of his equations during a lecture one time at the Magisterium, Kieran said. He tried to have me dismissed on the spot for that. Probably would have succeeded, too, if Rennick hadn't been in the hall at the same time and seen the whole thing. Evidently, he still hasn't gotten over it. Kieran's mouth curved subtly at one edge, a show of emotion that Shenna had never seen the boy achieve before. So you did all those calculations in your head right now just to show him up again? Of course not, Kieran said. I've been keeping a running tally, and I made my bid specifically to even out the numbers. Now that the smaller bidders are beginning to drop out, this should make the calculations that much simpler going forward. I suppose that makes sense, Shenna said. Also, it was annoying me, Kieran shrugged. Mostly that, if I'm being honest. Gelwin continued. 11 Raj 40 stands at present total. Would anyone else like to place a bid? 3 of Diamond Raj for partial bidding, Kalish called out, the largest partial offer so far made. Gelwin ignored her and made no move to record her offer. 11 Raj 40 stands as the present total, he continued. Now, at this point, I must ask that all bids be placed in increments of 10 Loth in order to keep an organized... Excuse me, Shenna called out. 3 Raj partial bid for the lady over here. Come again? Gelwin perked up. The gentlewoman beside me would like to offer a partial bid of 3 Raj, Shenna said, a little louder. Do you wish to place this bid, then? Asked Gelwin. She placed the bid, Shenna said, now growing terribly indignant. I want you to enter it into the list. Please do not be doing this for me, Kalish whispered in Shenna's ear. But it's not fair, Shenna protested. Your money's as good as anyone else. Why shouldn't he take a... I am not wishing for you to be making a scene right now, Kalish said, once again taking that firm tone that brooked no compromise. It is not being important. Leave the matter to be. But Shenna's protests died out before she could voice them. I'm sorry. I just wish that... I know, Kalish said gently. And I also wish this too. But not here, not now. The bidding continued, and after a few more offers, Shenna placed a partial bid of 3 Raj for herself. Her offer was entered into the list without incident. As Gelwin moved on, Shenna and Kalish shared a glance and a nod. After about an hour or so, the bidding began to draw to a conclusion of sorts. The remaining complete bidders realized that they were not going to secure the mines entirely for themselves and switched their offers to partial bids, if for no other reason than to kick the legs out from under anyone else richer than themselves, it seemed. Finally, there were no more bids to be had, and Gelwin read out the final list of all the partial bidders with their offerings. Many of the smaller bidders who could only put up a few Loth or who had incremented their offers with 30 Shem were convinced to either drop their bids or increase them to 10 Loth to even out the total. This, of course, prompted Kieran to adjust his bid up to an even 2 Raj. 57 Raj 30, Gelwin announced at last. That comes to 345 shares at a price of 10 Loth per share, to be distributed as listed. And with that, the bidding is now closed. I thank you for your offers, and I invite you all to remain while I draw up the purchase contracts. An orderly queue formed beside the lectern as the bids were processed. Eventually, Shenna reached Gelwin and found her entry in the list. Gelwin quickly scribbled down the contract and passed it off to her. Shenna made her way to the banquet hall to pick over the offerings until the next auction started, looking down at the parchment in her hands as she walked. The bearer of this contract is entitled to the opportunity to purchase 18 shares of ownership in the Sparks Valley Mining Company at a total price of 3 Raj, 10 Loth per share. This offer shall be redeemable during regular business hours at the Bank of Accra. Failure to redeem this offer within 3 months of the date of issue shall result in the said ventures devolving to the ownership of the Angara Consortium. Offer made by Gelwin, formerly of the Magisterium. Kalish was picking over the offerings in the banquet hall as Shenna arrived. She walked up alongside her and offered Kalish the contract. I'm sorry you couldn't make the bid yourself, she said softly. I hope this helps a little. You are a beautiful soul, Shenna, Kalish said, But it is probably for the better that you are holding on to this until the purchasing moment. They may not be selling to me if I am the one to buy. I understand, Shenna said, rolling up the contract and tucking it away into the purse with her spending cash. Ah, fish not biting, are they? Said a sharp voice behind Shenna. She turned to see a scrawny, narrow-faced man with a thin mustache that twitched like whiskers on a wild animal, and a hard, black-eyed gaze that might have been worn by a predator on the hunt. Can I help you? Shenna said warily. I think I can help you, little missy, the fellow continued. I can see that you got one of those share contracts. The mines, right? Well, now that the bidding is done, it's pretty clear those people paid more than it's worth. Not surprised, of course. These things can happen in the frenzy of the moment. I suppose so, Shenna said, glancing over her shoulder for a convenient means of extracting herself from the conversation. Anyways, I'll come to the point, the man continued, unaware of or indifferent to Shenna's disinterest. The value of those shares is already going down, and it's going to go down even further by the time they're actually issued. Now, if you want to back out of that contract, I can take it off your hands. I really don't think it's necessary. It's a perfect deal on your end, the man said, moving a little closer. You haven't actually spent any money yet, and even if you sell your contract for a share, you still made a profit. Now, I'm willing to offer... Hello, Piskren. The man jumped at the sound of Kieran's voice and turned to face the interloper. Hello there, Kieran. Getting a good haul, are you? Good enough, Kieran said, squinting at the man. I didn't realize you had been invited tonight. He turned to Shenna. He's not bothering you, is he? Piskren here can be a bit of a talker. Sorry, the man, Piskren, jumped aside. I didn't realize she was one of yours. Sorry. I'll just... He vanished into the crowd without bothering to complete the thought. Who was that? Shenna asked as soon as she was certain the fellow had vanished. Do you know him? Of course, I know most of the people here, Kieran said. Piskren frequents the futures contracts market. We've crossed paths on a few times. Is he honest? Shenna ventured the question. Kieran shrugged. As honest as he needs to be. He's not a thief, if that's what you're asking. Still, you would do well to count your fingers after you shake his hand. Kieran had already wandered back into the crowd by the time Shenna realized to her amazement that the boy had actually made a joke. His work at the bank was indeed changing him. In time, an announcement was made that the auction for the canal clearing operations would begin soon, and Shenna returned to the assembly area before the podium. Fryn was already standing before the lectern when Shenna arrived, and the two of them shared a polite nod. Yet as the minutes wore on, nobody else arrived to join them. Is it just the two of us? Shenna wondered aloud as Galwin finally approached from the banquet hall. Do you know, I think it is, Fryn said. I don't suppose basic public maintenance is as exciting as a mine. I suspect not, Shenna said. Half each? Fryn suggested as Galwin ascended the platform. Why not? Shenna shrugged. Galwin took the lectern and opened his mouth as if to speak, but hesitated when he saw the paucity of the crowd before him. You don't suppose either of you require a retread of the bidding rules? He said at length. And when neither woman spoke up, he continued, Very well then. Bidding for the Accra Canal Maintenance Company is now open at... 1 lath partial bid, Fryn said, producing a single golden coin in her hand. Shenna echoed the offer a moment later. Bidding is now closed, Gelwin said. With your permission, I don't think we'll bother distributing shares for this one. I shall simply invite you to our work depot in South Bottom, and you can assume ownership directly from there. Is there a date that works for the both of you? A meeting was swiftly arranged for the next day, and Gelwin collected his 2 lath. Are you sure the cost isn't going to be an issue? Shenna asked as the trio made their way back to the banquet hall. I don't imagine 2 lath is going to do much to settle the Magisterium's outstanding debts. Oh, don't worry about it, Gelwin said. The Sparks Valley mines covered 1/3 of the entire balance, and I suspect the quarry and brickworks will be similarly competitive. If you say so, Shenna said, still feeling rather awkward about having just purchased a critical piece of city infrastructure for less than the cost of the dress she was wearing. Besides, I spent years trying to get the Magisterium to offload that useless business, Gelwin said. An endless drain on our resources. I would have even sold them off to that dusky foreign harlot. Shenna blinked. And just who exactly do you mean by that? Oh, you know. The foreign girl in that ridiculous tailcoat. The one who tried to make a bid for the mines, Gelwin said. You really shouldn't encourage foreigners like that. It damages the character of the city. I don't know how she even managed to get in here to begin with. This was supposed to be invitation only. I presume she got in because she's a member of the consortium, Shenna said. Is she really? Gelwin scoffed. Well, that's not going to end well for them. She's personally responsible for many of our recent successes, Shenna said. Devram's new box ship wouldn't have been possible without her contacts in the south. She's gathered a well-earned fortune in a remarkably short time. Is that so? Gelwin said, no longer sounding so confident in his decision. Well, I suppose her kind do have their particular uses. And of course she's wonderfully charming, Shenna continued. All my friends in society are grown quite fond of her. I suspect they shall be quite disappointed when they learn how you refuse to hear her bid. Well, Gelwin stammered, now turning pale as milk. I'm sure that can be remedied. By now they'd reached the banquet hall. She's right over there if you'd care to try, Shenna said, indicating with a nod of her head to where Kalish stood, leaning against a table and chatting idly with another guest. She might even forgive you, assuming that you can make your contrition sincerely felt. Right, Gelwin muttered, and at once slipped away to ingratiate himself with Kalish. Shenna watched out of the corner of her eye as the dusky foreign harlot coolly entertained the man. She allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, despite knowing deep down that Gelwin hadn't changed his opinions about foreigners in the slightest, but merely carved out an exception for a particularly affluent specimen. Still, a small change was better than no change at all. Shenna took no interest when the announcement came for the bidding on the Stone Roots River quarry and brickworks. If it was to be anything like the earlier scramble for the mines, she wanted no part of it. And after that would come the bulk hauling barges, for which Shenna had even less use. Besides, the sun was beginning to sink low in the horizon, and Shenna knew well enough what was going to happen to Devram once the moon rose. She was determined to be far away from the island by that time. It took nearly an hour of wandering for Shenna to locate Sebastian. She found him in one of the back hallways, carrying on a close conversation with Devram. Hello, Shenna, Devram greeted her with a magnanimous smile. Getting a good haul from the auctions, I trust? I've got my eye on those bulk barges myself. I thought you might go after those, Shenna said. And yes, I am satisfied with what I've required so far. Sebastian, may I have a word? Of course, Sebastian nodded, and followed Shenna into a side passage. I'm ready to return, Shenna announced as soon as they were clear of Devram's hearing. What do you mean? Sebastian said, his expression unchanging. I am ready to return to Clearwater, Shenna reiterated. Sebastian shrugged again. I'll be staying the night here. Shenna started to protest, but the words evaporated on her tongue. She shut her mouth and locked eyes with Sebastian. There are plenty of rooms still available upstairs, Shenna said, and that's Sebastian said, in that same infuriatingly polite tone. Shenna turned on her heel and marched away with her head held high. It wasn't worth the effort to get angry at someone like Sebastian. Twilight was settling over the world as Shenna emerged into the courtyard. The auction for the quarry and brickworks was drawing to a conclusion, and the servants were preparing torches to light the last few auctions. A chill ran down Shenna's spine. She was running out of time. Say there, girl, said a sudden voice behind Shenna. She turned to see another man standing behind her, a squat, rotund fellow with a gleaming bald head and rosy cheeks. Do we know one another? She asked. You seem like an up-and-coming young lady, said the man, unconcerned with Shenna's reluctance. But I suppose you missed out on the auction for the mines earlier. Actually, I purchased a number of shares, Shenna said, pulling out the contract and holding it up in front of her like a shield. Well, not to worry, missy, the man continued. See, I committed to a little more than I actually wanted, and I need to offload my shares for cheap. Now, I'll sell you this contract at 5 Loth a share. I'll even split it up if you can't afford the whole thing. Just tell me how many you want." "I'm really not interested," Shenna protested, her head swiveling frantically about to seek some convenient means of aborting this conversation. "I'll be reasonable now, darling. 5 Loth is a steal," the man pressed further. "These shares are going to explode in value pretty soon, and you'll regret not getting in on this opportunity when you had the chance." Then, right at that moment, Shenna noticed a lone figure in gray robes breaking off from the crowd across the courtyard. "Kieran!" Shenna called out, and rushed across the turf to join him. "Kieran, wait up!" Judging by that earlier man's reaction to Kieran, his presence would be probably enough to drive away any pestering swindlers. "Hello again, Shenna," Kieran nodded as they came within speaking distance. "Was there something you needed?" Shenna glanced behind her and released a sigh of relief when she saw that the man had not followed her but had moved on to pester someone else. "Oh, nothing serious," Shenna said. "I just needed to get away from—" She trailed off when she realized exactly where Kieran had been heading. "Wait, are you leaving?" "Of course," Kieran said. "I've gotten everything I need tonight." "Could I get a ride with you?" "I don't see why not. Do you need to gather anything before you're ready?" "I'm ready now." "Very well, then." Kieran turned toward the main entrance. Kieran's courier boat was tied up at one of the far docks. It was a small thing, plain and unadorned, and noticeably less stable than the pleasure barges Shenna had grown accustomed to, made for speed rather than comfort. Kieran took up position on the pilot stand and pushed away from the docks, and soon the boat was gliding across Moon Lake at a steady clip. "Thanks for letting me ride with you," Shenna said. "I hope it's not too much trouble." "Oh, not at all," Kieran said. "You're still lodging in Clearwater, right?" "Yes, I'll point out the way once we get closer." The journey settled into the comfortable, undemanding silence that Shenna had come to expect from Kieran's presence. The courier boat cut a smooth pace across the lake, navigating the evening waves and swells with ease, all while keeping an even keel. Shenna had wondered at first why someone as rich as Kieran hadn't hired a personal pilot, but after experiencing his boat-handling skills, it was clear that Kieran had no need of such an expenditure. "I thought people from the consortium usually stayed the night at Angara's estate," Kieran said as the apartments of Clearwater drew closer. "Well," Shenna took up a moment to think up an excuse. "Ordinarily, yes, but I was accosted by another dreadfully persistent fellow who tried to sell me some shares, rather like to that one you saw me with earlier. Piskren, was it? I decided that if there were more of such tiresome persons about, then I would rather not stay the night." "Understandable," Kieran said. "Those guys from the futures market can be a pushy bunch." "I don't even understand what they were trying to accomplish," Shenna continued. "If I'd wanted more shares or fewer shares, I would have simply made a different bid during the auction. And this contract isn't even properly a share, just an agreement to purchase a set number of shares in 2 weeks' time." "At a fixed price," Kieran said. "That's the critical part, a fixed price, and one that might not reflect the true market value of the asset at the moment of sale. That's what's got the futures market interested." "Well, I suppose it's your business to understand these things," Shenna sighed. "For my part, I can't make anything sensible out of it." "Oh, I'd be happy to explain it to you," Kieran said. "I'm sure you would," Shenna giggled. "Shall we add it to the agenda for our next meeting?" "Actually," Kieran said, "I was thinking over dinner some evening, perhaps. I know a very nice place in Gold River." Shenna blinked and slowly turned to regard Kieran. "Do you mean courtship?" Kieran shrugged in a manner that seemed far too practiced to be a natural expression. "Well, if you can't find the time, then I quite understand. We can always just—" No, Shenna interrupted. I think I can make time." It had been nearly a year since Shenna had given any serious thought to romance. Her last candidate had been Sebastian, and those fancies had evaporated once she learned his true nature. And before that had come the sordid affair with Gareth. But that was years in the past by now. perhaps the time had come to give romance another try. And Kieran wasn't a bad candidate by any measure. He was unquestionably rich, with a good eye for finance, and whether from the influence of his work or the natural process of maturity, he was growing more and more congenial and polite. And of course, he was old enough by now that the notion of courting him no longer seemed like poaching from a cradle. Yes, the more Shenna thought about it, the more Kieran appeared to be a suitable match. Are you available tomorrow night? Shenna offered. Shall we say 6 of the evening? Yes, I think so, Kieran said. Should I come to collect you at your apartment, or should we meet somewhere in the city? At my apartment, if you please, Shenna said. It'll give me time to freshen up after work. It was dark by the time the courier boat glided into the grotto beneath the apartment. Shenna dismounted and made her way slowly to the elevation chamber, pausing for a moment before the door to look back at Kieran with a wary smile. Kieran met her expression with a smile of his own, though it was clear that he was still new to such things. Then he brought his courier boat about and slipped back out into the gathering twilight. That will be it. It's done.
Oh. It's what, me?
No!
It's complete.
I couldn't resist. I have to. It's like part of my religion or something.
Why can't you be named, like, I don't know, Burgermeister or something?
Or a Stookie. Or something that doesn't have infinite pun.
Potential.
Yeah. Okay. As far as thoughts, I like how this is progressing the story. I liked the I really liked the stock haggling, particularly. I like the slowly growing mystery that you're doing with what's happening with the Angara consortium, and I like that now Kieran and Shenna seem to be getting together. I like that progression of that story.
Yeah. I need them to have a very specific conversation in the next chapter.
Let me see.
Very specific.
Yeah.
That's intriguing.
One that is sort of going to encapsulate the detail of, or at least the political nature of the work.
Yeah. So are they going to talk about, like, the proletariat and the means of production and all that?
Well, I mean, I don't know how much I can afford to give away, but it's going to be a discussion about privilege and how privilege is sort of invisible.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
But I hope it's going to be a bit more subtle than just saying, privilege seems invisible when you have it.
Yeah. So this Galen, what's his name? Galwin chap? This is a bit of a bleep.
Gelwin, yeah, he's one of the talking heads from the Magisterium.
I bet he has a YouTube channel.
Well, I did give him the voice of Kermit T. Frog just to, make pretty clear that he is a bit of a clown. And also subtly racist.
Yeah, very subtly.
Anyways.
He's not racist, he's just not woke.
Any other thoughts?
So poor Deborah, I guess poor Deborah's going to be munched up by that Ungara thing.
Oh, he did. He is circling the drain. He will be dead by the next chapter.
No. Yeah, that lady didn't last very long, did she? What was her name again? Hecuba?
Hendrika, yeah, she lasted about a year.
So, lesson, don't get a promotion in this company. You're better off just being a grunt at the bottom floor.
Yeah, this is not a good company to be in. Although the money is very good.
Fair enough. Well, not because I changed my mind.
Assuming you can survive.
There's that, too. So how many people know what's going on? Like Sebastian knows, but how many? I'm guessing Debron had no idea.
It's left ambiguous. I was thinking about adding something about there was a mention in one of the earlier chapters where Hendrika says, before she gets eaten, she says, when you're around Angara for long enough, you start to hear the whispers of ambition.
Yeah.
So there's this sort of a notion that there's sort of like a psychic thing where Angara basically slowly convinces you it's like a temptation. And eventually, the more time you spend around Angara, your ambition gets the better of you to the point where it's essentially you agree to sell your soul to the devil.
Yeah, sounds a riot.
I was thinking actually about going back into Shenna's first meeting with Angara and sort of adding in those real subtle whispers, but I thought that was a little bit on the nose. Later.
Sounds good.
Anything else?
No, I had no thoughts. It was very good. I think I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Sorry, I don't have much in the way of feedback other than that. It's just you're really talented. I'm very excited to see what comes next.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much what I have to say too.
Okay. Very good. All right, Valerian, shall we hear yours next?
Yeah, I'm not going to be ready for another quarter hour, I don't think. I'm almost done, but I'm on like the last couple of courses.
All right.
I'm glad to know that you becoming me is treated as such a high achievement.
Oh, God. But it was a great accomplishment. I was never said I was looking forward to it.
What's up? Hi, Gold King. How's it going? He's another one of the writers on Three-Eyed Theorist. So we're just listening to each other's stuff, and giving each other feedback. Mr. Carl is one of the best of us. He's the most practiced in this. This I would say, aside from Valerian. Valerian's highly talented as well, but he's a little bit more archaically minded.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. You said quarter hour, so 15 minutes still. What are you eating? Are you eating like a Robert Baratheon style like multi-course feast over there?
I think we should probably just let him eat and have you go next.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Oh, okay, good. He does still exist.
Yeah.
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 It might be less than a quarter hour, but I'm giving a quarter hour just in case it isn't.
Okay. I can read it then.
Right.
Alrighty, let me pull it up. One second, let me get ready. Alright. Where did we... Alright. Let's see. Alright, so... Alright. Okay, so I think...
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, so so we're kind of in the final stretch of the story. I think we've only got like 9 pages left. Dang, very short amount of time. So what has happened is the reinforcements have now arrived, and the Delphar are being pushed back because they have a new friend coming in, where Artoria, where Tar Asheroth has the first king of Olyntius has kind of come back. I probably need to put in more into the story. I probably need to foreshadow him a little bit more, but he is very vengeful against the Delphar because they killed his wife and stole his kid. So this is kind of the first chapter with his POV. All right, so chapter 45, the Fire Demon. Tar Asheroth let his fury run wild as he slammed his sword into Arbitra's blade. Her tiredness was so palpable he could smell it. A slight hesitation in her arms, how her legs trembled slightly. Finally, he thrust out his sword a bit too far. Sensing her weakness, Tar Asheroth grabbed a hold of her sword and ripped it out of her hand. For a moment, Arbitra stared at him, then screamed and tried to retreat. Shaking his head, Tar Asheroth created a wall of fire to cut off her retreat. I'm not finished with you. Tar Asheroth raised his hand. Chains of fire spiraled out from his hands and grasped onto Arbitra. Screaming, she was pulled before him until she hung before him, wrapped in burning chains. She was pregnant with my child. He reached forward and gripped her face with his mailed hand. I want to know if the child survived. I don't know anything about what happened to your child, Arbitra screamed. I will be the judge of that. Tar Asheroth narrowed his eyes and exerted his will. Open your mind, he commanded. Arbitra screamed as he ripped open her mind and started sorting through all of the memories that the Delphar had around the time of his wife's death. Nothing of use was there save for a memory of several people leaving the city before the riot took place. One of them held a child in her arms. He tried to delve deeper into the memory, but Arbitra's mind was rapidly breaking as she tried to fight him, only to have her will overcome by his implacable assault. Finally, he released her face and let her fall to the ground, her miscolored eyes staring as if she were dead, though her chest still moved. With the fall of their leader, the Delphar fell into a complete rout. The Azrith led their troops through the city, cleansing the last remains of the Delphar from the Dark Mouth. Tar-Asheroth did not take part in the slaughter, instead using his power to strengthen the troops as he strode through the battlefield, his aura of terror causing the Delphar to quail and shake before his coming. Finally, all of the Delphar lay on the ground, though many of the Fomorian human troops had fallen. Cloaks swirling around him, Tar-Asheroth walked through the broken gate to where several soldiers were finishing off a few Delphar that had attempted to fight their way through. As soon as they saw him, the defenders knelt before Tar-Asheroth, putting their fists to chest. A few others he recognized as being from Wraiths followed suit, though it seemed in more fault by that they were following their friend's example. "Highest of all high kings," one of them declared. "Even our wildest hopes, it would never have expected you to come to aid. I should have been here sooner," Tar-Asheroth thought. But he only raised them to their feet, gestured to their defenders. "Be at ease, friends. The siege is over. You have earned a rest. You should be proud of what you've done." Not wanting to search for the Azrith, Tar-Asheroth simply waited in the courtyard until they came out of the Embriel. They all knelt before him, the Elintian Azrith putting their fists to the chest, while one of them only put his fist on the ground. Tar-Asheroth turned his attention to the fifth Azrith. This one had a large mace and a horn helm that he didn't recognize. "Ah, a newcomer." Tar-Asheroth offered his hand and raised him first. "Welcome to our ranks, brother. What is your name?" "Khamûl, Lord." The man inclined his head. "So you are Tar-Asheroth?" "I am." He walked to Farah and Kurafir so that he could raise them as he had Khamûl. "What you have accomplished here is a marvel. You managed to hold off the might of the Delphar for many days. Well done to you all. So, what shall we do, Lord?" Tarazon asked. Tar-Asheroth considered the question for a moment, then looked toward the east. "For now, let the army rest and regain their strength. They fought well and hard. We've gained a respite. We should take advantage of that." "Agreed," Tarazon bowed. "I'll pass the orders. There is something that does concern me. I felt a surge of power from the south only a few days ago. We need to investigate what happened. This is not the end of the war. It's only the beginning." Tar-Asheroth, nodding to the others, Tar-Asheroth turned away and just walked toward the other soldiers. "You all rest as well. You may not have the opportunity to rest for a long time." "As you command." Kurafir bowed, followed by the other Azrith. The ones he identified as Khamûl and Farah flew toward the castle and vanished. Not wanting to impose his presence on them, Tar-Asheroth started walking among the troops, congratulating those who remained unharmed, healing the ones who were injured, doing his best to boost morale. They all looked at him as if he were a god, which he was useful. He had only ever been a king. Mithrakal had always been the goddess figure, but he hadn't been tended to his people for many centuries. He visited occasionally, when he could take time away from his war in the north or his search for his child. "I should have been here," he thought as he helped a man to his feet after cleansing a wound on his arm that had been removed. It would have removed the limb if Tar-Asheroth hadn't tended to him. Casually, he walked through the city until finally he came on a group of these Fomori. They seemed to be gathering the bodies of the dead Delphar. For what purpose, he wasn't sure, but he assumed it had to do with burial. Off to his side, he noticed one of them dragging a body into a nearby house, and it looked like the armor had tooth marks on it. Strange, he thought. This would bear looking into, but for now, it was best to deal with the injured. And I think that's where we will. I think that's where we will stop. And then next week we'll finish it up. Next time we'll finish it up.
Interesting.
Mhm.
The now when it says tooth marks on armor, that I'm assuming that means like a beast, like fang marks, as opposed to human teeth.
Yeah. So the Fomori are cannibals. They eat people. It's part of their curse.
I see. So and are they like beast creatures then?
Yeah, they look like Urukai.
Okay. Right.
They're like or like fantasy orcs.
See, in that case, I think fang marks might be more. That could be good.
And I think I'll probably just change it to. It seemed as though the poor wretch had fang marks on its arms.
Do they have one eye in the middle of their forehead?
No, they are not Cyclopes.
Ah, because the king of the Fomorians was named Baelor.
Yeah.
Baelor. He had one eye.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I think it was Lou or something like that.
Yeah,
threw
one arm.
Yeah, threw a spear at him and got him right through his eye.
Yeah, and that's how they defeated the Fomorians. They freed themselves from their oppression.
I do like that moment earlier where he says, they say people looked at him like a god, which was useful. He had only ever been a king. That was good. That was good and ominous. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, functionally, he's the first king of Elentius. And he actually married a Delphar lady, but then she was killed. He's actually the person that raised the island of Elentius out of the ground, out of the sea, as a haven for humanity away from the Delphar.
Cool.
And him and Mithrical are from another planet. Kind of almost a little bit similar to like the Prometheus myth, where they kind of gave intelligence to humanity.
Interesting. I like it.
So Mithrical was involved with giving intelligence to humanity?
Yeah, education, fire, killing a giant monster that was trashing the world.
And she also invented credit cards.
Indeed. All right. How is your munching going?
My munching is almost complete.
And now my munching has ended.
I know our lunch has ended.
Now my munch
That's
has ended.
funnier than it ought to be.
Indeed. I try.
So carry on for the next couple of seconds. Carry on. Then I'll be ready.
I'm wondering, is the tension? Is there going to be tension between Tar-Pharazôn and Mithrical over the over the status as god versus king? That sounds like a good source of drama.
He actually is her second in command. And he's kind of going to be taking over the war effort while she's recovering from fixing giving the Fomori back their minds.
Let's see.
And she is, and more the tension is going to come in a little bit later. Do you mind if I kind of spoil some plans for the second book?
By all means, go ahead.
They'll die in the end.
Well, Tara Asheroth actually dies in the end of the second book and is reincarnated in the body of a human kid with no memory of who he was, and then he becomes the protagonist of book 3.
Very interesting.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, the reason why he finds his daughter and she hates him because she was actually raised by the Delphar, and she sees them as her people, and she sees him as a monster, and he can't live with himself, so he lets the Santa Claus guy kill him because he's got one of the few weapons that can. Problem was, he made a promise. Sorry, go for it.
The problem was he doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a sanity clause.
What you're saying? You're saying the story is fiction. This didn't really happen. This story.
I know, we've been lied to.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
I want my money back.
But basically, like, the weapon that that Lord Nicholas has, the irony of present company is not lost on me.
Kill it dead.
Actually kills him, but he made a promise that to this pair of peasants that took him in and showed him kindness, that he would that they would have a kid, and he ends up fulfilling that promise and being that kid. But he doesn't know, and then after they die, he runs away, takes up work, and eventually actually finds his granddaughter, like his a little Delphar kid, runs it. He finds her after she's been running away from the Azareth who want to kill her, and he ends up becoming her protector.
Nice.
Yeah, he doesn't know anything, but he just sees this little girl and feels very protective, and it helps that she has his sword, that's basically a receptacle of his power.
Sounds like a fun ride.
Yeah.
So, Larry, you ready to share?
I am ready. In fact, I'm sharing my screen. Wait, where did it go? The icon changed. Yeah, because I'm sharing the screen. Let's see. Is my screen up now? Yeah, the reason I'm sharing it is that otherwise this might be a little obscure. This is the Count of Monte Cristo if it were in Middle Earth. So yeah, I'm doing this for a change because Bleeder Blah and I have been watching a relatively new Count of Monte Cristo show.
What's the name that you gave me? Blight Lord? Was that
Bleeder
Blight Lord or what?
Bleeder Blah or something like that.
Bleeder Blah. I don't even know how to spell that, but I should give it my best shot. I love that.
Yeah, well, hey, you know.
Yeah.
So it will help if you've read Monte Cristo or some of Tolkien or both. But otherwise, this may be totally opaque. So.
Oh, speaking of which, I actually think we might take advantage of the fact that we have the PBS subscription and watch Around the World in 80 Days from the same program.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Why not? Yeah, they've got a bunch of stuff that I haven't even looked at yet. So on the second Nareal at Rue Bagshot, numéro 3, where Viscount Reginard had promised the Count of Montefato a rendezvous, everything was in preparation for such a festivity and such a guest as had not been seen in the Chiré since the days of Bilbon and the Seven Dwarf Dandies. The abode of the Count and Countess de Pérégrine was a large brick building, the bad, if fashionable, taste of Charcoleon, albeit with one or two concessions to Aragonist taste, such as the Aragon Tel Bourbon coat of arms over the main entrance. The Viscount had his own quarters, complete with a secret passage that served him in his amorous encounters with his friends' wives, a banquet hall, a bedroom, a smoking room furnished with divans made in Rivandeau, a trophy room largely adorned with the heads of boars, and a chambre de madams, that is, containing bric-a-brac from all over Terre Moyenne. Reginard's spoon collection was particularly esteemed. No less a judge than the Baroness Sackville Danglars qualified it as non-pareil. There was also a charming little collection of faience from Mount Erebeur, and a gallery of genuine folk Buffon nudes. Although Reginard's musical talent was not of the most stellar, he had placed his piano, a barbarbre of the Entcarver's early bad manner, in a style befitting our Hobbit salons. In a prominent locale between the smoking room and the nudes, the instrument groaned under the masterpieces of Ludwig von Ballentoren, Duran Maria von Weber, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozartbull, and Haydn Grétry Bird Popora Roman d'Aquille. Half a second. Pardon me. I hope you didn't hear that. The Viscount's pride and joy was his smoking room, which he had prepared with particular care, relying on the counsel of none other than Pierre Jacques Philippe Michel Boyen Zen Baguine, author of a monograph on 274 varieties of tobacco. On a table surrounded at a distance by a pliant divan, every known strain of tobacco, from the yellow tobacco of escargot to the black tobacco of Umbari, passing through Le Long Botton, the Marco Blanco 1601, and the Bouzum Ishi, shone resplendently in the pots of faience that the wooden-shoed Estfardingois adore. Beside them, in fragrant wooden cases, were arranged in order of size and quality, puros, arandillos, Yavanas, and Omantielvos, all the finest cigars of Terre Moyenne. Finally, in an open cupboard, a collection of dwarven pipes, amber brand chibouques adorned with the coral of the Haradrim, or Nazgule encrusted in gold, awaited the caprice or sympathy of the smokers in that symmetric disorder that after coffee the guests of a modern Munchin love to contemplate through the vapor that mounts to the ceiling, in long and capricious spirals, emulating the classic art of Gondot and of Bilbon. Ugh, pardon me again, I need to get some water after all that. The first guest to arrive was the cabinet minister, cheese connoisseur, and professional adulterer, Lotien de Brie. As he unceremoniously planted himself on a divan, Reginald exclaimed, "Bonjour, mon cher Lotien. C'est miraculeux. You, whom I expected to come last, arrived 35 minutes in advance. Has the ministry fallen?" "Non, no, mon cher truant," replied Lothian. The ministry may vacillate, but it never falls. I've been engaged all night with the Bromocel affair. It seems that the pointy-shoed minister had been making the mint on the side with the Dicky Dragon stock, which occasioned by having a monumentally boring night sending diplomatic dispatches from Rivendell. But enough of that. I am hungry, feed me, and I am bored, entertain me. It is the least you can do to make amends. Reginald provided Debris with an exquisite cheese of long cleave and a translucent Arandillo cigar, and told him a funny story about Boyen, Zen, Bagin, and a goat. Does this settle my doubt as what even is this? Triondo? Settle it, replied Lothian. Most noble Viscount, it leaves me deeply in your debt. Repay me by giving me the latest gossip from the diplomatic world. Has Don Elros found another shaven-footed ballerina with whom to amuse himself? What I know, I took good care never to read the newspapers. As if on cue. By the way, let me know when I've reached 20 minutes. I don't know how long, or I'm not sure how long this chapter is. As if on cue, the journalist, Monsieur Pierre-Jacques Philippe Michel Boyen Zen Bagin, arrived and headed straight for the tobacco collection. "Enter," cried Reginald a little belatedly. "Here is Debris, who detests you without having read you." "That is only fair," replied Pierre-Jacques Philippe Michel Boyen Zen Bagin, examining the tobacco. "I criticize him without knowing what he does. I will say this, though. The ministry has scandalously bad taste in tobacco. They declare all the best strains to be contraband and only allow the king's chief men to partake of them." "Oh, that has nothing to do with me," replied Debris. "That's a matter for the Ministry of Finance, whom Gondot placed under a curse of mauvais goût long ago." "Not bad," laughed Boyen Zen Bagin, "and I will even go so far as to say that if you could succeed to maintain a ministry for longer than I can keep my pipe full of Burzum Ishi lit, I would support your party in an instant." "You positively must try the Chandelle Dwarf," urged the Viscount. I don't know what this is all about now. "Bien, that's a consolation for the speeches of having to listen to the speeches of Sackville Danglars, who's even duller in private life than he is in public." "Do not speak ill of Sackville Danglars," remonstrated Debris. "He votes for your party. He belongs to the opposition." "Then good is yet evil to have been," said the journalist, tastefully mixing the Chandelle Dwarf with his Burzum Ishi. At this, the valet announced the celebrated and aristocratic talking fox about town, Baron Chateau Renard, and his friend Meurtrier Maury. "Permit me," said the Vulpine Baron, "to present to you Monsieur le Capitaine des Uruk-hai, my friend, and more, my savior. For the rest, the man presents himself quite well without my aid." As indeed he did, with his splendid uniform, half Chiré, half Orquois, and admirably decorated with the red arrow. "Mon cher monsieur," said Reginald, "I am dying of a curiosity far sharper than any épée de Morgul." "Oh, it's hardly worth the bother of telling, and monsieur exaggerates," said Maury. "What?" cried the fox. The life is not worth the bother of telling? Par les cheveux de Lutien. We were fighting for Rohan in the war against Saruman, and my horse had been killed by rogue Huorn. I was retreating by foot. 6 Druadins came galloping after me to slay me with their poisoned darts. I drove 2 away with bright iron, and 2 others with my blondrebousse. But 2 remained. One seized me by my tail, the other placed the point of his gamburigan on my neck, and I already felt the cruel cold of the blade when Monsieur, whom you see, charged them from a nearby cave, crying, Kazad Aimenu. Okay. Yes, said Mori, that was 5 Yavanidor, the day my father was miraculously saved, and I always celebrate by doing some heroic action, usually involving damsels and chariot tracks. When is the nuncheon? Replied Debris rather abruptly. At precisely 10:13 a.m. and not a minute sooner, replied the Viscount. I too await a savior, one of the great benefactors of humanity, who saved me from the banditti of all Hobbit banes, the most deadly, save the one who sits in the Banque Nationale d'Arnor. He ransomed you then? Inquired Chateau Renard. He was armed with more weapons than Arwen, a princesse guerrière, suggested Boyen Zen Bagin, showing that his appreciation of Racine was almost equal to his familiarity with pipeweed. He did not even carry the knitting needles of Ginjour, the other princess guerrière, said Reginard. He said a few words, and the chief of the banditti cowered in terror, set me free, and even gave Arfrost his hat, which was assuredly the most chic I've ever seen a bandit wear. Ah, was he Gondot then, this man? No, he was simply the Count of Montefato. I do not believe, said Chateau Renard with the sang-froid of a fox who knows the Terramedian nobility to the tip of his tail. Who is this Count of Montefato? Ah, now you ask much, said Reginard. The little I know of his fascinating story could fill many a feuilleton in the popular press. He is a wonder of 9 days beyond the shadow of a doubt. I seem that one could travel throughout the inhabited globe and find none better, nor more flamboyantly bizarre. I've heard it bruited about that he was a wizard or a vampire, but he's a good friend of mine, whether or no, and he has impeccable taste in everything. Pardon, but I believe I can rescue you from embarrassment, messieurs, said Meurtrier. Montefato is a small volcanic island to the south in the Bay of Gorgoro, an atom in the infinite. Precisely so, said Reginald. Now of this atom, he of whom I speak to you is the king. He will have brought it on a caprice. The Count is very free with his money, and it seems to have no lack of it. Once he came up the hill on an eagle laden with an enormous valise and a couple of caissons of Malone wood, no doubt full of treasure acquired in foreign parts, and dumped them in the Nimrodello on the grounds that the Jews there were only matom. If that even means anything. Okay, let's see. How long have I been at it?
A little bit more. I think we're good.
Yeah, I think it's only been like 12 minutes or something like that.
Oh, good. All right. Okay. Maybe I can actually finish this chapter then. Maybe I can actually at least get to the bit where the Count actually arrives. Okay, good. I find Malorn exceedingly tasteless, said Debris. Monsieur may say what he pleases, but Lotaloria is a strange place, and its nobility are even more strange. And Monsieur may say what he pleases about that which he understands even less than politics or tobacco, said Pierre-Jacques-Philippe Michel Boyen Zen Bagin. Malorn makes an exquisite material for pipes, and is so rare it should be almost impossible to find. En tout cas, continued the Viscount, if you have read the 1001 Pipeweeds, you will recognize the Count as being veritably a character therefrom sprung to life. He even styles himself Erando le Marin and keeps a subterranean court worthy of an Alvigo. But shoot, do not say a word of that in front of him. Arafrance entered his cavern blindfold and was served by mute fish-eating gangrels and by women, although he wasn't quite sure of the women, since they didn't enter until after he had partaken of hashberry, so that he might have taken for women quite simply a quadrille of lampposts. But the Viscount did not convince his audience. They all, to a man or a fox, gave him a look that clearly meant, no doubt you'll tell us that Tolkien wrote a mythology for escargot, or that Balrogs wear cravats. You in vain to play the skeptics, messieurs, he said. The Count of Monte Cristo exists, as surely as the ears of Glorfindel. After delivering you, did he not sign a document in fiery letters, yielding your soul a mulberry rind to this mysterious vampire? Sallied Debris. Mock as you will, messieurs, said Reginald, a little piqued. When I see our Anumanasians heading to the bistro or promenading down the Champs Valinore and think of that man, it seems to me that we are not of the same species. I flatter myself that this is so, said Chateau Renard. Your Count of Montefato is doubtless an excellent personage, apart from his little arrangement with the Venditti, added Boyen Zen Bagin. There are no Venditti, said Debris. No cravats of Balrogs, added Boyen Zen Bagin. No Count of Monte Cristo, concluded Debris. Now, shall we have nuncheon? It's precisely 13 minutes past 10. These railleries were abruptly interrupted by the appearance of a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form, of human shape maybe, yet greater, and a power and social éclat seemed to be in it and to go before it. It came to the edge of the fireplace when the flames roared up to greet it and light its branchibuc of chalcedony, and a black smoke, faintly narcotic, swirled in the air. Its streaming mane kindled and blazed behind it. In its right hand was the aforementioned branchibuc. In its left hand, an exquisite mithril walking stick like a stabbing tongue of fire. It nonchalantly lifted the walking stick, and there was a roll of thunder. The whole hall, with the exception of the new arrival, became as dark as night. When the valet announced, His Excellency, the Count of Montefato, the effect was distinctly anticlimactic. Really, Monsieur le Comte, said Reginald, these are hardly the manners considered usual in a salon. Pardon, it was an inadvertence, said the Count, resuming his normal form, simply yet exquisitely clad in classic black, with a cravat that seemed to extend from wall to wall. I not infrequently forget how awesome my powers seem to those not so fortunate as to be an homme supérieur. Moreover, I am foreigner, to the point that it is the first time I come to a Numinas. So I ask that these messieurs pardon any breaches of etiquette that I may accidentally commit, or if they find something in me too Haradric or Lothlorien or Orcish. My dear Count, there's no need to apologize. On the contrary, you have done me a service in showing my friends that you are indeed capable of prodigies, said Reginald, who then turned to his guests and added, Messieurs, this is the Count of Montefato, chieftain of the Club Dunedain, wielder of the walking stick reforged, lender of eagles, victorious over bandits, whose hands bring hashberry, the caliph, possessor of the most exquisite cigars. Do not dare to contradict me in this, Monsieur Boyen Zen Bagin, connoisseur of all things edible, potable, and smokable, and the most brilliant conversationist of our time. Shall he join our modest festivities? Sans doute, replied the guests. Permit that I introduce my friends, said Reginald. This is the Count of Chateau Renard, whose nobility goes back to the 12 peers of Mirkwood, whose ancestors sat at or under the White Council. Monsieur Lotien de Brie, particular secretary to the Ministry of Boundier, Monsieur Pierre-Jacques Philippe Michel Boyen Zen Baguin, dreadful journalist and terror of both the Honorian government and of every tobacconist in the Numinos who dare sell products of less than elvish quality. And finally, Monsieur Meurtrier Maury, Capitaine des Uruk-hai. At that name, the Count, who till then had saluted civilly, but with a coldness and passivity proper to a Lord Adam, whatever that means, stepped forward despite himself and became 1 or 2 degrees less pale. The Sieur bears a uniform that is veritably a fine, albeit velour, in which to cover one worthy to be a prince of the Eldar. One could not have said what sentiment caused the Count's voice to vibrate so profoundly, or made his fair red eye sans lid to shine. And under that uniform beats a heart capable of a deed so heroic that not even Dudelet du Rate could boast thereof, quoth Reginald. Monsieur is a noble heart, so much the better, said the Count, astonishing his interlocutors, and especially Maury, whose intonation was so mild that none could take offense. Veritably, said Chateau Renard, Reginald has not deceived us, and although I have seen and heard of remarkable things, the Count is far more a prodigy than even that a hobbit have the bad taste to sleep under a tree. What do you say, Maury? Ma foi, said the captain. Here's a sympathetic voice and a frank eye, however unusual its coloring, so that I like him despite the bizarre reflection that he has just made in my regard. At this, a servant announced that nuncheon was served, and the assembly, having inserted their heads into elegant glass vessels of cold water in accordance with the national custom, made their way to the dining room. My dear Count, said Reginald when all were seated, I hope that our baguettes are not displeasing to the palate of one accustomed to the cuisine of the Black Land. If you knew me better, monsieur, replied the Count, you would spare yourself a preoccupation that is almost humiliating for one who feeds one day on bagronk from Morgul, the next on cheese from Isengard, the next on tipped cow from Rune, the next on nothing at all, who in short has made an art of eating whatever and sleeping wherever he chooses. I possess indeed an infallible recipe for sleeping when I am bored, and cannot be bothered to distract myself, or annoyed, but not inspired to kill, or hungry, but not in the mood to eat. Voila would be excellent for us Uruk-hai, who rarely have anything to eat, apart from perhaps the leavings of the chérifferis, if you can stomach them, said Maury. Oui, said the Count. Unfortunately, my recipe, excellent as it is for an altogether exceptional man like myself, when Ms. Nonpareil is the white weed of Gondor, would be full dangerous for an army, which would sleep when one had the most need of her, as indeed happened when Saruman took the Hornburg. May one know what this recipe is? Inquired de Brie, dipping his crepe in brandy. Oh mon Dieu, oui, said Montefato. I make no secret of it. It is a mélange of excellent opium that the Balrog in Maury was so kind as to offer me. Indeed, his opium is even more select than his justly renowned coffee, combined with the best hashberry, harvested in East, c'est-à-dire in Minas Morgul, where the Fantômes have made an art of it. One joins these two together in a pill that produces the contentment of logs. I am never without these pills, lest I should want them, but not have them. Would it be indiscreet to ask to see this recipe more wondrous sans doute than the drafts of Ents? Inquired Pierre-Jacques Philippe Michel Boyen Zen Baguin, hoping to catch the stranger in a lie. No, monsieur, replied the Count. He removed from his pocket a great pill of a clear green, set in a silver brooch that was wrought in the likeness of an eagle with outstretched wings. So great was its beauty and so ineffable the fragrance that wafted therefrom that Boyen Zen Baguin was enchanted. C'est cosmique, he cried. Let's see. How much more is there of this anyway? Let's see. It looks like there's 1, 2. Yeah, there's a few more pages. All right. Should we stop there or?
You can finish it up. It's fine.
It might be a while. Eh, ne bogarte pas, said Debris. What a remarkable emerald, cried Chateau Renard, swishing his tail. I have never seen the like, even the chicken coops of the wargs. It is not an emerald, but an Elisar, custom made for me by the firm of Celebrimboro. Of Celebrimboro, I should say. A jeweler so exclusive that he has never accepted a customer since the fall of Sauron, replied Monteforto. I had 3 such. I gave one to the great lord of the dread of Dun Haru, and he placed it on his sabre. The second I gave to the lady of the Galadrini, and he crusted it on her tiara, and I kept a third for myself, and had it hollowed out, which diminishes its value, but renders it more art for my purposes. And what did these sovereigns give you in exchange for such treasures? Said Debray. The lord of the dead, the liberty of a spider, Galadriella, the life of a hobbit, replied the count, retrieving his opium ring and inhaling it. Earendel is returned, cried the Viscount. He has never been away, said Monteforto. I am Earendel as well as the count, belong to Taloria and Arnor as well as to the south. Everyone regarded him with astonishment. Messieurs, said Regina, I must tell you a remarkable story, should my amour propre suffer therefrom. I believe myself to be the object of affection of a descendant of a Finwë or a Legolas. Well, I was tout purement et simplement the object of the amusements of a contadina, and I say contadina to avoid saying dragon lady, and that's the truth if you follow me. Eh bien, I was even more un inimier than Thingolo was when he decided to essay a dwarvish liquor, where I was about to get into a highly compromising situation with said dragon lady, when she took to the air and faster than the inebriation of absinthe, well, brought me to a terrible orc hole, where I found the chief of the bandits highly lettered, for he was reading Elrond's De Bello Orcico, and deigned to interrupt his reading to tell me that if he didn't have 4,000 Kertara in hand by tomorrow, I would be as dead as an Aftian horse on the internet. I was at a désespoir like a frost on Barastille Day. The letter exists and is in the hands of Arafrons, who will confirm everything. Voila what I know. What I do not know, Monsieur le Comte, is how you succeeded to strike the bandits, who honor so few things, with so great a respect. It is quite simple, said the Count. I could have turned Luigi Vanya over to the whips and chains of Galadriella. Doing so did not seem worth my bother, so I did not. I just left him free to besiege Minas Tirith and inflict cruel damage upon Gondor with impunity. He naturally felt some gratitude. And the people of Gondor, your solicitude for them is charming, said Pierre, Jacques, Philippe, Michel, Boyen, Zen, Baguine. Perhaps it will seem strange to messieurs the socialists, progressives, wizards, but I never concern myself with my neighbor or seek to protect a society that does not protect me, or jump down a dragon's throat, or even abstain from pipeweed to save the life of another. Finally, someone dares espouse the purest and most brutal egoism. Bravo, cried Chateau Renard. But it seems, Monsieur le Comte, that you violated your own principles in saving Regina from the horrors of the Venditti, said Moray. Monsieur le Comte, vous voilà pris au raisonnement. You are the most subtle logician I have ever met, cried Regina. The biter bit, the hawk under the eagle's foot, the spider in the steel web of an evil tower. Not at all, replied the Count. After having lent you my eagle, served you nuncheon, spent carnival in your company, and taken you to see that delightful execution, it would have been rude in the extreme to leave you to the tender mercies of the banditti, besides, of course, rendering our present tete-a-tete impossible. For as I said at the time, my intention was that you should serve to introduce me to the monde of Anumina, as you have promised to do. I will keep my word, but I fear you will be disappointed, my dear Count. Here no adventure ever takes place, and if it did, it would be universally regarded by our state citizens as a repulsive, uncomfortable thing that might make them late for their soiree. Our Lotaloria, c'est Madame Bordel's Café. Our Champ-Valinare boasts far more bourgeois enjoying a mushroom with their mistresses than archangelic beings. Our great desert of Arad, c'est l'Opéra de Saint-Michel-Delvigne. Your robbers make pyramids of the skulls of their enemies. Ours construct them of plum seeds and run in terror from any mangy dog that guards the mushroom fields. The one service I can do is introduce you everywhere, but when with your name, fortune, esprit, and exquisite taste in jewelry has no need of introduction. The Count bowed with a slightly ironic smile, and is received everywhere. Nor can I share my lodging, for though I do not profess egoism, I am egoist par excellence, and so I'm constitutionally unable to share my lodgings except with a woman. Ah, voici une réserve altogether conjugale, said the Count. Must I then congratulate you on your future happiness? My father has indeed the project of marriage in mind, with Mademoiselle Eowenie Sackville Danglars. Are you married, Count? Inquired Chateau Renard. Non, said Montefato curtly, and a penetrating observer would have noticed a slight obscuration of his red eye. You have at least a mistress, surely, said Debris. The beautiful and mysterious spider lady? Added Regina. Better than that, I have a slave, said the Count. You borrow your mistresses at the opera or the mushroom dinner. Mine I bought and paid for at the marketplace in Kirit Ungala. Admittedly, that cost me somewhat more, but I have no complaint to make about that. But do you not know, Monsieur le Comte, said Debris, that the government of Aragon Philippe has abolished slavery, declaring even gardeners and gatherers of mushrooms to be free? And who will tell her? Said Montefato. Why, the first person she meets, she only speaks the tongue of the spiders. Dame, said Chateau Renard, do you also have eunuchs? No, I do not carry the Orientalism quite so far, said the Count, though they seem less alien to me than the foot barbers of the Hobbits. Where will you stay, Monsieur le Comte? Asked Marie. Do you require assistance in finding lodgings? Thank you, no, monsieur, said the Count. Gali has already found me an excellent place. That somewhat peculiar fishy mute, cried Regina. What can he possibly know of Anumanasi real estate? He knows my tastes, and that is sufficient, said the Count. He bought a home for me at Champ-Valinare, numero 30. But that's a royal palace, cried Boyen Zen Bagin, startled out of his reverie induced by tobacco. So I gather, replied Montefato, whether ironically or naively, no one could tell. I have no doubt it will be satisfactory. I have also bought a delightful suburban villa in Baroudon. Mon cher, said Debris, rising, your guest is charming, but there is no company so good that one does not leave it, and even for bad company, as Aragon observed in leaving the bit of Arwen to chase after orcs. I must go to the ministry, but I will use the memory of this meal as a consolation for the abominable taste in mushrooms that reigns there. Au revoir, messieurs. And he left, crying, make way for the seigneur of the ring. I too must be off, said Boyen Zen Bagin. I have to offer my readers something better than yet another of Sackville Danglars' speeches. De grâce, monsieur, not a word. Let me have the honor of introducing the Count to the world, said Regina. The Count? I was thinking of the tobacco, said Pierre, Jacques, Philippe, Michel, Boyan, Zen, Baguine, and departed. Monsieur le Comte is truly the most extraordinary man I've ever met, said Chateau Renard. Like the tree of Nimrod, he reigns alone in solitary bizarrerie. Montefato bowed. Are you coming, Marie? One moment. Permit that I give my card to the Count, who will indeed promise to pay us a small visit at Rue Jadis Joplin, Numéro 14, said Maury. Monsieur may be sure I shall not fail, replied the Count. The Fox departed with the captain of the Urukai, leaving Montefato alone with Reginald. I think that's the end of the chapter. Okay, good. It is the end, because my voice is going to give out in a moment.
All right. Nice job. I like the just you have a way of parroting the exact novel very well, honestly.
Well,
It definitely sounds like something that was written by someone who was paid by the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As Dumas was.
Yeah, that's a problem with Dumas. His stuff is very meandering and not tight at all.
I think I may have actually shortened it a bit.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Well, you can work on that. I do like the notion of a Balrog wearing a cravat.
Yeah.
Honestly, really
It is
fun.
quite amusing.
Yeah.
I'd say, my dear chap, would you consider not passing here?
Quite so. Quite so, indeed.
I really must insist upon that. You must not go through here, and I must put my stuff down.
In that case, I'm afraid we're going to have to fight a duel.
All right. Well, we will call it good for today. Thank you all for coming. Bye.
Oh, and the dwarves are German stereotypes now. Is that it?
Are they? Maybe something like that.
Yeah. Makes sense. Work.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. I'll see you later, guys. Bye.
See ya.
Have a riot. Don't die horribly.